little bit about your recent tour?
Yeah, so in February, March, I was on tour with Leprous. For those who don't know about Leprous, the band is from Norway. It's a progressive rock slash metal band with a lot of orchestration. And we were out for 7 weeks. We played
Wow.
40 shows, and we were out with two really amazing support bands, Monuments and Calandra. And so it was a very diverse tour musically, but also I think very cohesive. For the band, I would say it's been the most successful tour so far. We played the biggest venues of any tour that we've done in the past with really great crowds. You could really tell that because the band has remained active over the last few years, particularly during the pandemic, that's really had a very strong impact, a very positive impact on the actual live shows and the tours. We played a lot of really cool spots like Shepherd's Bush Empire in London and Salle in Paris and Centrum Scena in Oslo. So like some really kind of legendary venues, and just socially, I think it was a really good vibe. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
21 people in a bus, living
Oh my
together.
gosh. Was it a big
But, like,
tour bus? Like one of those
yeah,
big
so
ones?
it's
Yeah.
a double decker bus.
Yeah, yeah.
So the entire upper level is all bunks. So
Yeah.
you're living in the bus. There's no hotels or anything.
Wow. I noticed like from your pictures, you were playing solo at times as well, like not just with the band, right?
Yeah. So since I've been touring with Leprous, which has been now for a bit over 5 years, something that we've sort of maintained through that time is these solo spots for the cello at various points. It used to be the show intro for, I think we did it on 4 different tours. And on this one, it was more interludes, and a lot of them are improvised. Um,
Hmm.
but of course, over time, when you're playing every night, something that begins as an improvisation ends up getting solidified because you sort of
Yes.
find yourself repeating whatever works well and falling into certain patterns. But so that tour now ended a while ago. Actually, it's been almost 2 months, and then I got back, and since then I've been traveling with Ottawa Dance Directive, a contemporary dance company here in Ottawa, and yeah, we did a couple shows in Edmonton in April, and we just got back from Orillia, Ontario, earlier this week, and that's been really cool and a very different experience, but extremely rewarding, and just an amazing group of people, and a really fun show, which is all my own original solo music. And it's a lot of playing for me, but
Yeah, it sounds like it, but that's okay. I mean, you love to
exactly.
play, right?
Yeah, when you're doing long shows in general, like with Lepers, it's
Yeah,
a 90-minute show, but it's very different in the sense that like when you're playing with an entire band,
yeah,
there's a little bit less pressure on you musically, but there's also the expectation that you're going to put out a lot energetically, on stage, because it's a very animated crowd. It's
right.
pretty high energy music a lot of the time,
Yeah.
and everyone is really in it in that regard. And with the dance show, of course, I'm not getting up and standing and walking around, but in terms of the amount of playing and the physicality of the pieces, and also interacting with the dance and just kind of keeping my head in the game, it's it's demanding in its own way. So
That's so cool. So you're doing so many exciting things. I wanted to ask you, of all the things that you've done in your cello career up till now, what do you think would be the most exciting moment?
I don't think I could pinpoint one, but there's been a lot of cool ones. I think
Yeah,
career-wise, like there's been a lot of highlights where, I played in a venue that I really liked.
right.
That kind of felt like a milestone in a way. For example, with my group, The Visit, we played at Kerner Hall. This was years ago in 20.
Yeah.
That was a big deal because it's probably the best sounding hall in Canada, and it's just an incredible room. And we were on this really interesting program of new music. And then actually later that year, that's when I met Leprous, and that was like a huge turning point for me. Meeting those guys and then working with them, on an album and then touring. And we played at Hellfest on the main stage, which is Hellfest is like basically the world's biggest metal festival,
Right. Yeah.
and it just like kind of happened like that. But just being and just kind of doing that was sort of surreal. And another thing would be playing with my group Camancello. It's a duo with Persian Comanche, and we wrote a
Oh
piece.
yeah, I love that. I love
Oh,
what the cello and that instrument just sounds beautiful together. You
thank
guys are
you.
really, yeah.
Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
that's probably one of my favorite things that you do is playing with him.
Oh, that's so cool to hear. Yeah. For me, it's like that's a project that's very close to my heart, but maybe not as many people know about. So
Yeah.
it's nice
Yeah.
when people are into it, you know.
Well,
And
hopefully we can get more people to check that out.
so yeah, like in 2019, we did a show with the Windsor Symphony, and we played this piece that we had written to perform with them, and it was kind of another moment of like just being blown away by the fact that it actually happened. Lastly, I'd say probably releasing my album Worlds Within. That was like kind of, it was this feeling of freedom in a way of doing that, giving myself permission to make a solo record under my own name and to do things exactly the way I wanted, and then to release it. And actually, I went on like a Discord server, and there was like a listening party, and we listened to the album all together in real time, and people were commenting and chatting
Oh,
and
super cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it was a really cool feeling to release it and have so many people listening the day it came out, and to kind of watch it evolve, you know, the sort of journey of how the album has reached people, and how, you know, I've learned to play it live and performed it, and what that's led to also.
It's neat how one musical opportunity can just lead to another one, right? And it's kind of like an adventure. Like you never really know who you're going to meet and click
Yeah,
with, and that's
it's
it's
so
pretty cool that
cool.
way.
Yeah, you don't ever know what's coming around the corner, but you have
Yeah.
to just keep going because there's so much in store if you continue. So that's been kind of the moral of that story, I think. And but I would say also on the other hand that for me, the moment of creation, for example, like when you get a cool idea and you have
Yeah.
that feeling that you know it's going to be something special, and you're playing it and you're just hearing it in your head, and you're excited about it, and it's this very visceral feeling also. That for me is like at least as special as any of the career milestones. And it,
Yeah.
you know, it's a private thing, like it's usually just for you, but it's so special. And I can remember so many of the times that I wrote specific things and how it felt to me at that time.
Yeah, that actually segues into my next question perfectly, because my next question is, what advice would you give to cellists who are trying to develop that sort of unique cello voice that's all their own?
I would say listen to as much different music as you can, and specifically listen to a lot of non-cello music that you like, and try to incorporate elements of that into your cello playing. So try to use the cello to kind of do everything, even if you think that it might not be well suited to it. Try to imitate those sounds, or find a way to recreate those techniques. I think so much of what has given me maybe a more unusual voice in what I do is that I grew up playing different instruments. I really like drums. I really like rhythmic music. Don't just listen to cello music. Of
Yeah,
course, it's really important, but also if you're going to do that, then listen to cellists that are doing really different things.
right.
So when I was in university, for example, I was really going down this YouTube rabbit hole of all these non-classical cellists, which was really balancing out studying classical music.
Yeah,
And
I had that exact same experience.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
just keeps you open-minded, and to remember that there isn't one good sound or one right sound. There's all kinds of different approaches.
Hmm.
To really think about, I think with the cello in particular, that it's a versatile instrument that can do so many things.
I was going to say it's such a diverse instrument, and I think a lot of cellists don't necessarily realize the world of sound that you can create, like with this
100%.
simple instrument. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And
Yeah.
it's cool to reflect that, like the different timbres, the different techniques. So you can almost visualize like all parts of the instrument are being used in a way. And that can create a more full orchestration. Coming back to your question, to just keep going, and just try things and just explore. There isn't one right way, you know, it's just what feels good to you and what makes sense to you personally. Because people will
Right.
always, that's wrong, or like that's not actually very good, or that's not good cello playing, that's not serious, like,
Right.
you
Especially if
know,
you came from a classical background, which both
yeah,
of you and I did. There's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of like criticizing down to like the tiny elements of your playing.
yeah,
And that can hold people back, I've found, from
totally.
experimenting.
I agree completely. It can be very debilitating to have that attitude. And even for me, like I don't play that much classical music now in a professional setting,
Hmm.
uh, but I still have that voice sometimes saying, "But that's not a good sound," or you know,
Right.
like the way you did this vibrato, or the way you attacked the string here. So I think it's important to be able to like turn down those voices if
Yeah.
your background and be a bit more free and non-judgmental, because I think to create anything, you have to be able to just enjoy it like, oh, that's an amazing sound. Oh, that's cool. And just be curious like a kid would be if they were just playing and trying things.
Yeah, I love that. Like just playing in a sandbox, right? Like,
Yeah.
what does this look like? Yeah.
Yeah. And in
Yeah.
addition to that, I would say having a certain non-attachment. Because, for example, if you built a sandcastle as a kid, you might just be fine knocking it over and making another one. You wouldn't feel like this is my masterpiece, you know, my magnum opus, or
Totally.
like, you
Yeah.
know. Whereas I
Yeah.
think sometimes we can get a bit stuck and hang on to our creations, even if it doesn't necessarily serve it. So
Hmm.
being able to create in a non-attached way and just sometimes allow things to flow freely.
With that in mind, kind of like thinking about that creative process, when you sit down to practice these days, what does that look like?
You know, my practice in the abstract, if I don't have a show or I don't have a goal that I'm working towards, is a bit more unstructured. You know, I used to spend a lot more time shedding, I think, in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Did a lot
Mm-hmm.
more
Do
shedding, of
your
course.
scales, do your studies, do your pieces.
Yeah, the school days,
Yeah,
like, you know, there's a
yeah.
lot more of that. But
Yeah.
again, because there was a structured place where I had to play those things.
Hmm.
So, and that's tricky. Like, I thought a lot about this, about how different people operate. Like, I'm kind of very like intuitive, go with the flow type of person. I realize
Yeah.
I'm not really like a person that thrives off of having uh like too much of a set itinerary. I find it
Right.
to be a little bit overwhelming actually if things are too organized. So, you know, different people have different things that work for them. Like for some people, I think that it's better if you have a very detailed plan of all that
Hmm.
you're going to do, and maybe it's broken down all the way to like every minute or every 5 minutes or
Some people
something.
do that, right? Time blocking is like every single second of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, what I would say I do is the first thing I want to do is to feel comfortable with my sound and on the instrument. And you know, when you start playing during the day, it's usually like you're a little bit more stiff and the calluses
Right.
aren't in as much. So I go slow. I do practice scales really slowly.
Hmm.
So I'll do like slow scale practice, especially going just up the A string, just all the way up from the, you know, first position or half position, all the way to the highest octave. And then I'll do that in a few keys, really, really slowly, focusing just on intonation, just being relaxed, just having free sound. And I also do some quick scales. There's a kind of a method or like a set of fingerings that Stefan Braun uses. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so he demonstrated this scale technique that I like because you can rip through all the keys just two octaves
Hmm.
in basically in first position.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I do a similar thing with the circle of fifths. I just rip right around it in
Yeah,
one octave and then two if I feel like it.
yeah, sometimes it's
Yeah.
good to go through all the keys, and what I like about this is
Mm.
that, first of all, you get it done really fast,
Yeah.
and if you need to just quickly warm up, it's very useful, but also it's good for improvisation because, it minimizes the amount of shifts you have to do. So then following that, like if I do a little bit of that first, then I'll play solo Bach actually, and
Oh, beautiful.
I'll just do a bunch of movements, whatever I am kind of feeling like that day,
Yeah.
whatever sort of makes sense for me. Like I'll go painfully slow sometimes and I just tune everything because I feel that a lot of the time people play too much stuff in their practice without paying close enough attention to especially intonation. And it
Yeah.
doesn't feel transparent, you know? And so for me, like that's like the most important thing almost is to feel like all the intervals and everything are really clear. And
Yeah, clear tone, clear tuning. Yeah, and you have to go slow to do that because your brain can't process it at a quicker level, right? You got to train it.
yeah, yeah, that's a very important thing too. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
like, with a lot of my students, I tell them, for example, like, I think you're tuning that too fast. Like,
Mm.
or and spend more time, you know, if you're checking that note, for example, with your open string, like,
Yes.
don't rush it. Make sure
Yes.
that you have time to really settle, like your ears are able to process that, and
Right.
also that you're able to understand like where your hand should be and how it should feel to be balanced in that way, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had my teacher in university, Shauna Rolston. She used to say, and it seems so simple, but like in retrospect, this advice is just so on point. She just said, play each note one at a time,
Yeah.
one note at a time. And if you have to do it like half time or quarter time, that's what you do. You don't
Right.
think ahead until you've got this note. And
That's
it's
good.
it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like, to me, that's like almost thinking about, like, living in the moment, right? You only have this moment to do the thing. Don't worry about what's there or what has passed. But it's
Mm.
very, as a discipline in cello playing, it's hard to develop that, right? Because people don't want to slow down. They kind of want to play fast. And
Well, you want to feel like you're awesome right away type thing.
yeah.
We live in a time now where I think people are maybe expecting that quicker because it's a
Right.
feeling of kind of pressure to get to the
The
result
next
you
thing.
can show people, and there's also so many choices now as to what you can do in life in a way that I think people get overwhelmed because they're aware of all the things they could possibly do, and so they get a sort of FOMO if they're not doing all those things. And for me, I feel
Right.
kind of the opposite, that like I'm still trying to work on this cello playing thing. Like I'm still trying to make it sound the way I
Right.
want. It'll take me like my entire lifetime, just to feel like I've at least given it a shot and
Right.
done my best.
Right,
So
you're never done, When
no,
my
you're
when
never
my
done.
students ask me, when am I going to feel like my sound is good, I'm like, well, maybe never. You may get to a point where you feel confident that you could present a sound to others that they will like, but you inside may still feel like you have work to do.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I really resonate with that. Yeah. So scales and Bach for sure, but also improvisation. Sometimes the first thing that I do is I just start creating something, or I just start playing whatever I'm feeling. It's
Yeah.
usually, again, earlier in the day, I think it's easier to play something like a single note melody than to do something with lots of chords. So I think I'll just hear something in my head and then I'll just sort of whimsically follow it. Um,
Right.
Kind of like if you're singing to yourself, like, you would just do whatever felt right,
Yeah.
in a very non-judgmental way. So sometimes I'll improvise more extensively and just feel things out. And other times I'll just really kind of focus in on fundamentals and feeling physically good. And then after I've done that enough, then I'll feel also more creatively inspired, because there's something about being warmed up and having played, like I find playing Bach really helps the creativity as well as the fingers.
Speaking of improvisation, this is a little bit like the question I asked before, but just going to a deeper level. Cellists who want to get into improvisation specifically, and maybe composition, what would you say they need to keep in mind?
I would say stay non-judgmental. Like I said earlier, be
Right.
non-attached. Don't worry about doing it well. Just focus on doing it for the sake of it. Um, and don't feel that you need to have a clever idea or that you need to do something particularly original. Um, I think the originality part, that stumped me a lot, where I would improvise a lot. When I was younger, for example, I'd improvise, but I wouldn't pursue an idea if I didn't think that it was super original and kind of something that blew me away immediately. But
Yeah,
I
I
realized,
felt exactly the same.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
because
you really want to be unique. I'm a unique snowflake.
yeah, yeah. But what you realize is that like so many of the things that you enjoy are probably not that unique. They probably
Yeah,
have an element of familiarity actually, to you, and that's why you like them. There's something
right.
familiar and something new, and that's what makes it successful and popular. An idea that might be just okay could turn into an amazing piece. And it's all about how you develop the idea and how you build on it, and also the confidence you have in an idea to really rock it.
So yeah, getting a little bit into the masterclass that you're going to be doing for us, which I'm so excited about. Can you tell people a little bit about what to expect?
For sure. So what I'd like to share is basically a creative toolkit or kind of cellistic vocabulary that kind of pertains to the stuff that I've done in the past. So things that I'm pretty versed in, that I could share with folks, and that I think are useful, to sort of give you some ideas for creating and improvising, and especially in the context of solo cello music, because I think that writing for solo cello is tricky. It's not as easy as, for example, writing for the piano or even guitar. it can accompany itself, but it's a more specific art, and it's something that I've kind of been wrangling with for many years. And I remember actually shying away from writing for solo cello for a little while because I felt that it didn't feel complete enough. Some of my
Mm,
ideas didn't feel like they sort of stood on their own. And, I kind of think very big scale. So I want to be able to incorporate a lot of different elements into a solo piece. And I think it also takes a certain facility on the instrument sometimes to be able to play things that might be a bit more ambitious, that sort of allow you to stand on your own and do something really interesting with the instrument. So I'm going to talk about some techniques that you can use to sort of maximize your use of the cello, and you can develop your ideas and create different variations so that, for example, if you have a melody or a rhythm, you can kind of morph it into other things, and you can allow it to evolve over the course of the piece. And I'll talk about sort of timbre and getting different sounds out of the instrument, creating an atmosphere. So a lot of things that relate to technique and how you can create new ideas and sort of build a composition. And also I'll talk about tunings that I use. I use a lot of alternate tunings and open tunings, and that's not really an option for everybody, I realize, but there are some that are pretty doable that will open a lot of interesting doors. And when you use them, you'll find that some of the techniques that I talk about will actually be even more powerful. And then
very
finally,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, and I'll mention some stuff about looping, even though, again, not everyone has a looper or the possibility to amplify their instrument. But if you, again, have sort of the cellistic tools at your disposal, so you're able to create different types of rhythms and sounds and sort of musical textures, then if you have a looper, then it can be very powerful in bringing them all together in a cohesive way and finding ways to orchestrate kind of on the fly, actually, whether you're creating a piece or you're just improvising it in real time.
That sounds really exciting, and I know a lot of our cellists are just gonna love it. Like even those that don't necessarily have the access to the electronic equipment, I feel like they're gonna be inspired by you. They're probably gonna run to Long McQuaid and get themselves a looper,
Cool.
like
Yeah.
right away.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you so much. So you also mentioned that you were talking about a bonus that you'd like to offer to people. Could you tell us a little bit about the piece that you're wanting to share with us?
Yeah, for sure. So in 2016, 2017, I did a series of covers. They were like cello arrangements of songs that I kind of grew up with, I guess, in my teens, by prog and metal bands. And so they're all kind of pieces of music that are very close to my heart. And so I did these cello, I mean, you could almost call them cello tributes in a way, but they're sort of reimagined versions of these songs. And so I have the score to my arrangement of the song Harvest by the Swedish band Opeth. This was a cool one for me because I had never really done a cello cover recording before. And I made this arrangement of the song for 9 cellos, and I posted it on YouTube, and then the band actually shared it.
Wow.
So a lot of people have watched this video now, and it's like the
Yeah.
most watched video I've ever made, actually. And so yeah, it would be cool to share the music. I have the full score, and you can kind of do it with looping as well. And I have an arrangement for just a single cello and piano.
Oh,
So
very cool. Yeah, so if you don't have 9 cellos, you could be all 9 cellos and record them or
yeah, or you
or
could have
play
a
it on
group
your
if
own.
you want. Yeah, so
Yeah.
like you can play it with piano, or you could play it with a cello ensemble if you're able to put one together.
I'm
And
thinking my cello ensemble should do it.
yeah, that'd be super cool. Yeah, I would love
Yeah,
that.
that'd be
Yeah.
so cool in Ottawa. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have the score and also the audio, so you can listen to the recording that I made and reference it.
Amazing, amazing. So I just have one more question for you before we wrap up. What is next for you in your cello journey? Like, where do you see yourself going in the next year, 2 years down the line?
Yeah, it's hard to see too far ahead, but right now there's a lot of cool things on the horizon, like some really interesting offers and shows that are coming up for next year, but also later this year. So right around the corner, I'm doing these 3 back-to-back shows with Auto Dance Directive, playing again my own compositions, and we're going to keep doing that evening in the future. So that project is going to kind of continue on for as long as possible.
Yeah.
So there's going to be more collaborations with them on the horizon, and there's also going to be new music from Camoncello that we've recorded.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, we have music that we've recorded with tabla. If people aren't familiar, it's an Indian percussion instrument. It's very common in Indian classical music. And we recorded an album's worth of improvised stuff together. And we also have music that we recorded with string quartet. And we're going to be doing more stuff with orchestra in the new year, next year, a while from now. But and then I'm going to be recording new solo albums. I say albums because I have a lot of stuff that I've written that I play at my shows that I haven't recorded yet. So it's kind of a priority now for me to go and
Yeah,
do.
you got to get that down.
A lot of people are asking, so
Yeah,
it's kind of the next step for me is to
yeah,
record that material and then hopefully tour it more. You know, and that's another thing that I want to do is get out and do more solo touring in
yeah.
different territories and to have more albums that I can bring with me too. So all of those things are coming up, and there's going to be some cool shows in 2024. So I'm
Amazing.
kind of just really looking forward to that and whatever comes next.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And we will see you at the workshop on June 3rd. It's going to be Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Raphael will be there, and it's going to be an amazing time. So I'm really thankful you came to share with us and looking forward to you sharing your wisdom.
Well, thanks so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.